Want to know something that's ruining a major aspect of gaming for me, particularly in regards to the Nintendo Switch? Something I'd like to call, fittingly enough and not meant to be a pun, the bait and switch. Now, what is the bait and switch? Well, this is the phenomenon in physical games nowadays where it's like, hey, we're going to have 2 or more games on one cartridge, and then we're going to lock some of them behind a download code. And this really rubs me the wrong way. And I noticed this particularly recently in the announcement of the Mega Man Legacy Collection Combo Pack. So why does this piss me off so much? And why do I think that you should know about it and that we should have this discussion here today? We'll find out on today's video. Welcome to Switch Sunday, where, gee, I wonder what console we're talking about in this show. And if that sounds cool to you, why not subscribe? So today we're talking about a practice that I've really noticed happening on the Nintendo Switch. The practice of having multiple games in a physical game package and then locking them behind a download code. Now, this isn't a practice that's exclusive to the Nintendo Switch or one that has only happened in the past few months. However, it's something I want to talk about in detail, so we're covering 3 things today. The history of this, or mainly my personal history of this practice and when I noticed it started to happen. Following that will be why I think companies partake in this practice, and then we'll end off with why I think it's bad for your bottom line. Keep this in mind if you work for a game company, or if you really don't get why this pisses me off yet. So without further ado, let's get right into the video. So the bait and switch tactic, as I like to call it, I first noticed back with the release of Final Fantasy X and X-2. Now, for those of you who've played this game, you're probably saying, whoa, 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 bearded man on the internet. That game had both games on one disc. And that is correct. If you bought the console version of the Final Fantasy X and X-2 HD collection, it did. However, if you bought the PlayStation Vita version, that version only had Final Fantasy X in the cartridge, and then X-2 was download only. I noticed a similar practice occur with the release of Pokemon Gold and Silver on the Virtual Console, where in Europe and Japan you could buy a physical box for these games, but the box would only come with a download code. I remember saying that I thought that was pretty much a waste of money because you were paying for cardboard and nothing else. On Nintendo Switch, I first noticed this happen with the Resident Evil Revelations collection, where you got the first game on a cartridge but had to download the second game. And I later noticed this happen with the release of Bayonetta for the Nintendo Switch, where if you bought Bayonetta 2, you'd get a download code for the first game, which is weird because in Japan, the first game did get a physical release. Thank goodness the Switch is region free. I personally don't feel I own a game unless I have it physically. Notice, I will recommend a lot of digital-only indie games because I do love to support small independent game developers. But notice how I'll never say I own this game on my Nintendo Switch. I'll say I have this game on my Nintendo Switch. Because I feel like if that's there, or if the SD card it's on ever gets broken, it's gone. If I can't hold a game in my hand physically and say, yes, that's this right here, then I don't own it in my opinion. I just own a means of playing it. I could kind of understand with the Revelations and Bayonetta things. And the reason for that is that right now, the biggest Nintendo Switch cartridge that you can put a game on is 32 gigabytes. There is a 64 gigabyte card in the works. It's not out to next year. Bad forward thinking on Nintendo's part, but then again, forward thinking was never really their strong suit. What really rubbed me the wrong way was the announcement of the Mega Man Legacy collections for the Nintendo Switch. Now, if you remember my review of the PS4 version of Mega Man Legacy Collection 2, that came out for $15, and I thought was a fantastic compilation. Now, the first game released for $20. The Switch double pack of both games is $40. But because that's 10 games total, at first I was like, yes, this is still worth it. But then I realized something. The Switch version, physically, the cartridge only comes with a physical version of the first Mega Man Legacy Collection, which has the 6 NES games, while the second collection with the 4 latter Mega Man games, the 4 latter classic Mega Man games, is digital only. And this makes zero sense. First things first, you have to understand how small an NES game is. The entire Mega Man Legacy Collection 1 is only 800 megabytes in size. However, Legacy Collection 2 is 5 gigabytes in size. Makes sense, these are newer games on there. But there is no reason both of these shouldn't be on the same cartridge together. But this feels like an extremely lazy cop-out on Capcom's part. So with that, I think it's time to get into the second point. And the second point is this: why do companies do this? And I think the answer is simple here. They want to cut down on the used game market. Now, of course, we've seen crap like this happen in the past. Games that are online only, or that need an online pass, or the aforementioned Pokemon releases where you get a cardboard box with a download code. A download code is single use. While yes, with most gaming cloud services and whatnot, you can re-download a game you've downloaded through a code. Take a shot every time I say the word downloaded. Once it's on there, it's yours. It's no one else's. I feel like this is especially the case with Capcom, in particular with the Mega Man Legacy Collection. Why else would they do this other than to make it so people couldn't resell versions of the Legacy Collection 2 cartridge? Third category, and what's that? Why should companies stop with this? For a lot of us who buy physical Nintendo Switch games, because hear me out, if you buy your games digitally, you don't care about this. But for those of us who are buying it physically, we're buying these because we don't want to download it. Because we want the physical game that we can hold in our hand. And it feels like a cop-out. If we see Mega Man Legacy Collection 1 and 2, or Bayonetta 2 with Bayonetta 1, we're like, oh, we're getting 2 great games in one package. But instead, you're getting one game and one means of playing another game. Going back to what I was describing earlier. Companies shouldn't do this because it makes those of us who like physical game media feel alienated. And that's bad because in the end, it's going to lead to less profits for them. But you know what? That's just my thoughts on this topic. So thank you very much for watching this episode of Switch Sunday. If you like this video, why don't you comment down below your thoughts on this bait and switch tactic and subscribe to Stuff We Play for more great content like this. And while you're at it, why don't you share this video out with the world, because every view does count. So with that, thank you very much for watching. Stay classy, and I'll see you next time.